Hi, I'm Robert Tolby, and today I want to talk about Instagram's activism culture and how it pushes the aesthetics of activism without any of the substance. I'll be focusing on a page called Impact and why it's not as impactful as their name advertises. I want to show how their posts are inane and sometimes harmful, despite the noble messages they seem to promote. Not all men. As humans, we generalize things. For example, we say be careful of ticks, they carry Lyme disease. But no one says, actually, not all ticks carry Lyme disease, because logically we understand that enough ticks carry Lyme disease to put you at risk of being infected. When we speak up about women's oppression, obviously we know it's not all men, but when 1 in 3 women are assaulted by a man in their lifetime, it's enough men to make all women afraid. Wow, inspiring words, Christina. I'm sure this will convince every neck-bearded boy scrolling through Instagram that women have a right to fear men. Let's read the comments, shall we? Yikes, comparing men to ticks. Thanks for comparing me to a literal bug. This is just dumb. Ooh, Christina, you failed. And these aren't even hate comments. They're kind of valid reactions. Your post was bad. You're not gonna change any man's mind by comparing them to a blood-sucking parasite. That's not how you persuade people. But I don't think you were even trying to. You see, this is a post intended for other women, not men. Women already know why they shouldn't trust every man that walks up to them at a party. So why does this post exist if people who like it already agree with what it says, and the people who it would actually impact hate it? I have a simple explanation. It looks pretty. That's the one thing it does right. And I mean, that's what Instagram's kind of for, isn't it? Sharing pretty images, and with its pastel pinks and cute typography, it's a shareable aesthetic image, but nothing more than that. And the Instagram page responsible for it, Impact, is a bottomless well of shareable aesthetic images with little to no substance. So, how did they come up with this brilliant content? Well, I'll walk you through their creative process. Let's take an important topic. For instance, how climate change disproportionately affects lower class people of color, and strip that topic of any kind of context and simmer it down to the phrase climate justice is racial justice. And to make the topic of famines and natural disasters cute, put it in a bowl of alphabet soup, I guess. And then take the letters out of the soup for the next picture for the only purpose of making it a carousel to drive up engagement on Instagram. And yay, you did it! You made an impact. I know I'm acting like a jerk, but these useless, pretty pictures make up a large portion of their content. They take a phrase, make it pretty, and post it with no context. And they sometimes resort to repeating the phrase over and over again in different pastel colors, like it's some kind of incantation. This kind of drives me crazy. Take the climate justice is racial justice post, for instance. The people in the comments are completely confused, and that's to be expected. The post could have elaborated about how holding big companies accountable for their environmental crimes against people of color is, in fact, racial justice. But when you simmer down a topic to seemingly random buzzwords, it looks like you're making your content by throwing darts at a dartboard. But it's not only that these posts seem nonsensical to the wrong audience, they don't reflect well on the topics they're trying to bring up. They're bad optics. They come across as clueless, confrontational, and preachy, and at times they seem wildly out of touch with the issues that they're talking about, while at the same time coming across as incredibly self-righteous. I've talked about the posts that simply have an out-of-context phrase, but even worse are the posts that list things that you should or shouldn't do, or should or shouldn't say, which I mean, that on its own is fine. However, it certainly helps if you give an explanation, even if you don't think it's necessary, because you're not going to change someone's mind without one. And it certainly helps if you're consistent in your message, because very often your page contradicts itself. Like when you said don't say blacks to refer to black people. Well, yeah, it certainly gives off 1960s vibes, but oop, what's this? Yikes, you might want to fix that, sweetie. Or when you say woman X, whatever that crap is trans exclusionary, which, I mean, it does feel kind of turfy, let's be real. But what's this? Uh-oh. And I'm not even nitpicking here. This is not a good look because if you're going to give us dogma, you're going to have to practice what you preach. Because right now you look like a hot mess. And I assume it's because the page is basically a content farm at this point, as it continues to post low quality, repetitive content made by independent content creators who are definitely not reimbursed beyond a simple shout out, and they all have varying opinions and levels of education about the topics they're talking about. I think the people who are actually running the Impact page are so obsessed with pooping out content that I don't think they ever take a step back to look at the coherent message that they're sending as a whole. And this is where it begins to remind me of another borderline content farm known as BuzzFeed. I mean, their content is kind of hitting all the same notes, especially with their posts embodying that type of feminism that's superficial with scant intersectionality or white feminism. Like, do you honestly think all their posts worshiping the sacred feminine passage and all of its excretions for some reason are intended for anyone other than privileged white women? Perhaps I'm being too hard on them. I mean, it's bad content, but it could be a lot worse.
Taking that first tampon stroke completely changed the game for me, and I was just immediately empowered.
I think that BuzzFeed single-handedly undid all the progress of the second wave feminist movement with just that video. Anyways, these posts lack substance and waste space on their page. Instead of posting a random picture of someone's parts, you could have picked a more potent topic to talk about, even one about feminine health. For instance, how feminine washes and deodorizing products are aggressively targeted towards Black women, or how people in low-income areas often lack access to adequate healthcare. And I'm not saying they aren't intersectional in their feminism ever, or that they're wrong to worship the sacred passage or whatever. I'm saying that many of these posts are just images with very little message. And this is where we go back to the aesthetic side of activism. When these pages create these Instagram posts, they know that they need to be palatable and digestible by white feminists, so that they will post it on their Instagram stories and drive up likes and engagement. And to be frank, those issues that I mentioned require a little more careful consideration than the milquetoast hoo-ha's are valid posts, if you get what I'm saying. It's easier to post things that are uncontroversial and generic enough to include privileged women in issues that they really don't have to worry about in order not to alienate them. I want you to look at this post, which asserts that women should be able to walk anywhere at any time wearing whatever they want and not be attacked. I hope you can immediately see the problems I have with it, because I feel like this is a really dumb post with terrible implications. Women aren't being attacked for what they want to wear or for where they want to walk. That feels kind of victim blamey, implying that women actually have some kind of choice as to whether they will face these kinds of issues in their life. I feel like the creator of this post is trying to say something, but really isn't considering the circumstances of most women. The attacks themselves aren't restricting women's choices. 9 times out of 10, women can't choose where to walk or what to wear anyways, because they might not be able to live in a safe area, or they might work in a profession that requires them to wear certain revealing clothes or work at specific hours. It's almost like there are systems in place beyond individual choice that force women into situations that are not ideal. And posts like this just seem to ignore that completely and focus on women's freedom to choose whatever they want, and not the reality that these crimes are not correlated with how much individual choice a woman has, but rather her class and her race. But those are issues that aren't very aesthetic and might not be worth posting on someone's story, especially if someone doesn't feel included in a post that they don't think was made for them. And it's not just these BuzzFeed feminist posts that are completely out of touch. Some of them stray into territories that you should never be making aesthetic content about. For instance, they had the great idea of turning Breonna Taylor's death into some kind of cutesy little children's book. I mean, that's nice, I guess, because let's turn a victim of senseless violence into an alphabet because we're woke, I guess. Thank you for those fighting words, Evie. And at that point, my tolerance of this crap runs dry. They're just ornamentalizing a serious issue for the purpose of adorning the Instagram stories of the seemingly virtuous. And that makes me feel like that's the only purpose of their page, to make activism palatable, marketable, shareable, and attractive, at least to other people who share their values. They create these perfect posts for celebrities to put on their Instagram stories to display that they are, in fact, good human people. And I'm not saying the celebrities are secretly bad people, or that Impact doesn't actually care about the issues that they're talking about. I'm just saying that that's what these posts are doing. They're not making an impact, they're crafting an image for these prominent influencers who follow them. And as for people who disagree with these impact posts, they can be almost harmful with how abrasive they are. To educate someone, you gotta meet them where they're at. And they might have internalized a lot of garbage out there, and it's kinda your job to pull them out of the dumpster. That's what you signed up for. But when you're an ass about things and tell people with an honest question that Google is free, they're not going to agree with you. Or even worse, they might actually Google their question and just get their biases confirmed by an algorithm that hand tailors their results to be as biased as possible. I made this video because these problems aren't confined to one page on Instagram. They're found everywhere. I've learned that good educators that change minds are few and far between these days. The internet is filled with aesthetics obsessed, self-righteous ding-dongs, and I don't like that. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk, I guess. I'm Robert Tolpe, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and maybe check out my Patreon linked below. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Here are all my wonderful patrons.